Hi, I'm JD Oliva, writer, author, member of the Urban Fantasy Facebook group, here with my friend Robert Krisch, and we're going to talk about your new Kickstarter project. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about what's going on with that?
Thanks for having me on here, and thanks for give a shout out to Eric Erdek for starting the Urban Fantasy Club, and I was sort of thrilled to hear about it and be invited into it. I think I want to talk about that for just a quick second.
Go for it.
Um, when I heard about the concept of it, I just thought it was great. It was like each month we have fans and readers that are getting new material from different creators, getting it for free. Okay, that's awesome. And when I saw some of the names on there, I was super excited because like I'm a fan of a bunch of these guys. I've been following like Rob Multari's Night Wolf, which is kind of an urban fantasy coming of age werewolf story. And every time he comes out with a new book, I jump on that. Eric's comic, Espresso Detective, it's like a noir, has kind of a Lovecraft kind of theme to it, a little sexy. That's a great book. David Steinborn just came out with issue 1 of A Broken Trident, and that book is fantastic. And then I also saw Ben Lacey on there with Shark of War, and I love Shark of War. I love the pitch for that is Jaws meets RoboCop, and so I was sold on that. So it was cool. It's cool to see like an eclectic bunch of creators, stuff that I love, and then I know that people are going to dig. But my comic is kind of a nice complement to that, because my book is it's a horror comedy, urban fantasy. And so my book is called Turner Family Terrors, and it is a horror comedy family adventure. Think The Simpsons meets Hellboy. The story follows a sweet suburban but utterly dysfunctional family as they're tasked with saving the world from a ragtag gang of monster morons. It's got a little bit of a whimsical Scooby-Doo look to it, but it's an adult book. It's not for kids, so you guys have been warned with that. The humor is like a South Park or Rick and Morty. And I would say like just what I'm kind of trying to do with the book, like my biggest influence is Mel Brooks's Young Frankenstein. So it's that kind of like classic horror black and white look, but crossed with an absurd over the top comedy. And so for me, it's been fun because my story, at the heart of it, it's about a family, and it's about a family who is, they're trying to like navigate their own dysfunction and traverse the pitfalls of parenthood. And so for me, it's a personal story for me, because I'm I'm a bumbling dad that is trying to not piss off his wife and screw up his kids, right? So it's fun because I get to write about my stories. I get to write about my sadness, my joy, my frustrations, but more importantly, the humor. And I get to kind of crank that humor up to 11 and add monsters and myth and fantasy and action adventure and dick jokes and spit takes, you know? So it's been fun. It's been great to be working on something a little lighthearted like that, especially over the past few years. Things have been so lousy in the world, you know. It's been fun to to tell some jokes and, you know, come up with monster stories and all that kind of stuff. So there it is, Turner Family Terrors on Kickstarter, starting May 10th through June 10th. And if you're hearing that, if you're viewing this like after that, we'll probably have a backer kit store where people can pick up the comic. And yeah, there it is, Turner Family Terrors.
Tell me a little bit about the urban fantasy genre and what it kind of means to you, because it's kind of an all-encompassing term, and how your story actually fits into those genres.
Well, I think for me, like, having been exposed to urban fantasy, I think growing up, my family was one of the first families on the block that got cable. So I got HBO and Showtime when I was like 5 years old, like back in 1980. So I was watching a lot of probably inappropriate films and movies that I probably shouldn't be watching, but a lot of them were just so much fun. And when I was thinking about the genre of urban fantasy, I was thinking about some of my favorites. And I think the number one film for me is probably Highlander. That one is just visually stunning with the supernatural swordplay and the score by Queen. It's so memorable. Another one was Big Trouble in Little China. Like that film was fantastic. And what's interesting about that one, I think what it does the best of is, like, in the genre of urban fantasy, you start in like familiar settings, and then you're taken into this sort of fantasy world. And for Big Trouble in Little China, you start on top in Chinatown, and then you sort of are sucked into the vortex of this story with like black magic and evil religion, and then also like funny jokes by this like hard-boiled truck driver played by Kurt Russell, so it's just like, so that one was great. And one of them that I liked recently is Bright. Bright was great because it was like Lord of the Rings set in Los Angeles, where I live. I live in Culver City. And I just thought that was done so well. I kind of just ate it up, like every like fun, awesome element, like high fantasy element, Lord of the Rings thrown into the back streets of Los Angeles was great. But so those are some of the films that from my childhood and stuff that I have seen recently that kind of scream urban fantasy. But for my story, I think elements of the story takes place, it starts in Los Angeles, and then for this first story arc for issue 2, we went to Roswell, New Mexico. For issue 3, we make it to New York. So there's this element of quest. They're definitely on a quest. You see elements of the Chosen One, which is kind of a trope that in fantasy. With my story, we have a sweet little girl, the daughter, little Sophia Turner. She could be our savior, or she could be the Princess of Darkness. We're not quite sure yet. We're kind of figuring that out. We have a lot of mythical monsters thrown in there. We have the Russian Vodniavoys, which are the swamp creatures. We have Velosamodivas, which are ethereal maidens. There's lots of magical elements, magical crystals, magical barbarian helmets that transform little kids into 50-foot tall barbarians. And so we're playing around with a bunch of stuff, a lot of things that kind of check off fantasy or urban fantasy elements, but also just comedy and horror and action adventure. And so, yeah, so it's fun.
Tell me about your collaborators on this project. Who are you working with?
So I have been working with a wonderful illustrator based out of Novi Sad, Serbia. His name is Ski Bozic. And I have been collaborating with him for 2.5 years now. We found each other on a Facebook group called Connecting Comic Book Writers with Artists. And it's a great group. I recommend it for any writer out there who's looking for an artist. Hop on that Facebook group, put up a post about what your project is, and then you'll get contacted by a bunch of artists and you can get the ball rolling. And hopefully in a year you have your comic book in your hand. But I've been working with Ski for 2.5 years. What I read a book from him called The Adventures of Cordelia Swift. And it was black and white with gray tone shading. It was noir, it was moody, but it was also kind of lighthearted and whimsical. So when I read that, I knew that he was the right guy to draw my book, because that was good. He could do monsters, but he could also do, a lighthearted family, which is needed. So I've been working with him, and he's great. And then what has been fun over the past couple of campaigns with each issue is bringing new artists in, like working with different cover artists. For my last campaign, I worked with 5 new artists. I worked with 2 cover artists, Easton Hawke and Joel Saavedra. And then I worked with 3 pinup artists. This time around, we're working with Easton Hawke is back. He does like cryptid. I don't know if you can see up here. He does like a really awesome American cryptid illustrations. So he is back with our main cover. Our one of our variants was illustrated by Fried Comics, Kyle Roberts, and colored by Wes Hartman. I know you probably know Wes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's fun. It's fun to meet people online, but then also be like, hey man, come work with me. Come work with me on my book. So he did colors on one cover. And then another buddy of mine, Christopher Brimage, does a great book, Mandrill PI. And I love that book. And I love the artist, Carlos Trigo. So I contacted Carlos, and one weekend he busted out another variant cover for me. So for this campaign, we have 3 variant covers, and Ski is back with his lush black and white noir interiors. And we have 2 pinup artists, JP Harrington Jr. and Lightning Strikes Marcus D. Newman are doing 2 pinups that are going to be in the bonus material. So yeah, so that's the campaign, and we started in a few days. And I noticed that do you have a campaign running right now?
My campaign is about to end in 20 hours as we're recording.
I know, I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, she's doing an interview with me right now. And I guess that's good. You don't want to like always just like look at the numbers, and see the countdown. But I was like, oh, his thing is coming down to the wire here.
I'm fine. We're almost 4 times the value of what our funding level. It's for a trilogy of prose books. It's cool. It's going good. I'll move the campaign over to Indiegogo actually too, for people that missed the campaign, which is a lot of fun. But yeah, right now I want to know, tell me about what potential backers can expect from your campaign. Like, what do you guys have cool going on that can entice backers who might be a little bit on the fence about the Turner Family Terrors? What's going on there?
Oh, well, I think, starting off, we're probably going to have some good early bird specials. I think for our main cover, we'll have a discounted book for the first, I don't know, maybe 48 hours or something along those lines. We're also going to have, I think, for the first, this was popular from our last campaign, for the first 100 backers, they're going to get a 6-pack of indie comics, some of my favorite comics out there. They'll be able to get that. And then for this campaign, it's cool. Like we're constantly like, we try to introduce new people to our books. So in this campaign, in addition to getting issue 3, we have, we still have, I think, 40 copies of our very first run of TFT #1. And so backers can still get that first print run of that. We have a Kickstarter exclusive variant for issue 2 that they can pick up. We have, for this campaign, we have Kickstarter exclusive covers. And then we've got just some silly stuff on there. I always put on there, my daughter, she, during the pandemic, like everybody's started to do certain things on their own. And for me, one of the things that stuck was cutting hair. Like I'm now my own barber. And so one of the things that we've done for the couple of campaigns is we have a tier on there where my daughter takes my scissors and all my barber stuff and she cuts my hair. And so she does it however she wants. And so it's just kind of a silly thing. But the thing is, now she's getting older. So instead of her being 5 and it just being crazy, now she's 7. So it's like a good haircut instead of like a total, dumpster fire. And so maybe we're like blindfold her this time, or maybe she'll just like shave me bald or something. But we like to have fun with the campaign. But we also deliver, a quality comic, and we, with each campaign, we up our game. We bring more artists. We have more collaboration with other people, and I get to meet new people and people that I have. That's going to be one thing for this campaign, is that I'm going to hopefully meet even more people out there. And yeah, you're one of them, my friend.
Appreciate it. So let's kind of wrap this up a little bit. One more time, tell us where we can find the Turner Family Terrors, when it's going to launch on Kickstarter, what the funding goal is, all the good stuff.
Okay, so Turner Family Terrors issue 1-3 is going to be on Kickstarter on May 10th through June 10th. And I think our funding goal is 3,000. I think we set it at 3,000 last time, and we raised about 6,700 or so. So anything over that is gravy, but one thing to remember, everybody, is that with the book club, everybody's getting a free copy of issue 1 of Turner Family Terrors. So I'm thrilled to be, I might be the first one sent out. So I'm very excited about that, and excited to get the book in everybody's hands. And I hope you enjoy some of the dick jokes there. So
who doesn't enjoy dick jokes? It's going to be great. Check out the project when the campaign launches. I'm JD Oliva. We'll see you next time.